And so we see, as we'll continue to study, that another huge error on David's part brought him nothing but misery. Even though he was real happy, because culture at that time was the more male child you could have, the more blessed, quote, God blessed you. That was a thought. But we'll see, contrary to God's will, these children were not necessarily a blessing to David. Okay? In fact, one of them tried to kill his own father. Killed their own brothers and sisters and so forth, as we'll see. So we are never blessed when we go contrary to God's plan. Never. God does not bless it. He does bless us whenever we are following His will and going in His plan. Then He will bless us. And it says He seeks to bless us. In 6, and it came to pass while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. Now, remember, although there was a king that Abner put in place, Abner was stronger than the king. The king was intimidated. Why? Because Abner controlled all the military. And there was very little that the king could do if he did not control the military, right? And so Abner was, for all basic purposes, was in charge here. Now look, 7 is interesting. Another example. And Saul had a concubine. Now, kings had wives, and then they had concubines. Okay? And a concubine was nothing more than women that they were not married to, that they put in their harem, and they had sex with. That was what a concubine was. Now, Saul is dead, right? But his concubine is there. Now, the concubine would not have been allowed to be touched by any other man, even though Saul was dead, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said unto Abner, Wherefore hast thou gone into my father's concubine? So what had Abner done here? Abner, just like David, can't stay away from the women, can he? Does that get men in trouble today? Now, it's not only women, but some men can't stay away from men also. As we know, our fine congressman or senator up in Idaho is paying the penalty for that. God doesn't bless these sins. There's always a consequence to pay. And so Abner had actually insulted Saul by doing this. Then was Abner very wroth. He was beyond angry, wasn't he? For the words of Ishbosheth, and said. Now Ishbosheth, the reason why, let's see, Abner got so mad about that, why do you think Abner would get mad about this?
Because he was calling him on something he knew was wrong.
Exactly. He knew he was wrong, and he knew it was wrong. He knew it was wrong in God's sight, and he knew it was wrong in the custom of the land. But Abner didn't care. Power is pretty corrupting, isn't it? And Abner felt like he could pretty much do as he pleased here. And said, Am I a dog's head? We don't hear that expression too much today, do we? Which against Judah do show kindness this day unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren, and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of David. So who is taking credit for David not taking kingship over the 11 tribes here? Abner. Abner says, you know, I placed a descendant of Saul's on the throne. We've been battling David for 7 years. He hasn't been able to come in and take over this land. This wouldn't have been possible without me. And so you have the nerve to question me. That thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman. After all I've done, you have the nerve to come to me and tell me I've done something wrong? You would be, basically he's telling him, you would be nothing if it wasn't for me. All of you would be nothing. Because I protected, what he's saying is, I have protected you against King David. Okay? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord. Now, Abner, notice why I say, knew that David was to be the king over all. He knew this. He was out of God's will. So do God to Abner, and also except as the Lord has sworn to David, even so I do to him. Now Abner has decided that it's time to change allegiance. And he's decided that it is now time to get on David's side. Okay? And to consolidate the 12 tribes. And so that's what he's saying. As God has sworn to David that David would be king over all the tribes, I'm going to swear to David also that he be king over all the tribes. To translate the kingdom from the house of Saul and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah from Dan even to Beersheba. Now, in verse 11, Saul's son, and he could not answer Abner a word again because he feared him. He feared he might lose his head, right? Like I said, Abner was the power broker. Abner held all the power here. There was a king in name only. This is kind of, think about England. Do they have a queen? Yes. Does she have any authority over anything? No. She's a figurehead. Abner put a king on the throne as a figurehead, didn't he? And then he controlled things. So it's no different today. And so we're gonna cut off here, and we'll see how Abner and David must pay consequences for their poor choices and choosing to go against God's will. But we'll pick that up in another lesson. So we'll go ahead and end here. Pam, would you dismiss us in a word of prayer?